right, so good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, we're all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science, a little bit of all three today, into classrooms and homes around the world. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all our teachers. It is the World Teacher Day today, but just in general, the fact that you guys spend your time with us, especially amidst this crazy year as we continue to highlight amazing people and places, it means the world. So thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're live on YouTube or on Facebook. So today we continue a really exciting series. Over the last few years, we've had the chance to work with the Intermountain Bird Observatory's Lucky Peak Research Station in highlighting some of the most amazing feathered friends that are out there, tracking songbirds, curlews, raptors on their seasonal migrations, and tagging some amazing birds. And today is no different. We are going to go back to Lucky Peak to see if we can catch some raptors at the station with Leah, who's an educator and researcher there. So she's going to dive us in and see if we can have some really cool live animal interactions today. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Leah, and looking forward to hearing all about what you guys are up to. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, we're really excited too. Well, you're really lucky because you get to join us for a day, but we're even luckier because we get to do this every day. So like Jesse said, I'm Leah. I'm the crew lead here at Lucky Peak Research Station. We're a fall migration station, so we're studying migration of all different types of birds. And here, let me flip the camera. We are in the trapping blind, and I'm here with Nick, the lead trapper, and Evan, one of our raptor technicians. And you can see this beautiful view that we've got in front of us. And so, let's see. So the birds are flying in along this ridge, and you can see right now a white little dot flapping its wings right in front of Evan's face. And so that is one of our lures. So we have these birds attached to all these lines that Nick can control. And they have these sort of little almost bulletproof vest, but they're made of leather, and so they protect all the birds' important parts in case they were to get hurt. When they're wearing the harnesses, birds of prey think that they are injured, so we're tricking these raptors, things like hawks and maybe an eagle, and all of these other birds into thinking that our lures are hurt and easy prey. So hopefully we get to see one come in, but that's the general idea. And let's talk about why Lucky Peak is a really good place to do this type of research. So I'll take you out our window here. Straight ahead is downtown Boise, but you can see that this ridge line. So we're really high up, and Boise is about 2,000 or 3,000 feet lower from us. So birds of prey are really big. So I think everyone has seen a red-tailed hawk. They're big birds with red tails. You might have seen them along the roadsides, perched on a telephone pole. So they're so big, it would take a lot of energy for them to flap their way all the way through migration, potentially going thousands of miles, maybe all the way to Mexico. So instead of flapping and using all of that energy, they want to travel along ridge lines like this. So two things are happening when they're traveling along the ridge line. One, they can use what's called a thermal. So if you've ever seen a group of birds kind of flying around in a circle in the air, they're using these thermals, and so that's just hot pockets of hot air that help them rise quickly. And then the second thing that's happening when they're traveling along ridge lines is what's called, they're using uplifts. So air is kind of forced up as the elevation changes. And so they're using all of these different types of things that happen with weather and in the air to help push them forward along their migration route so that they don't have to use so much energy to flap. And the boys are scanning the skies to see if we have any birds that are interested, any hungry birds that we can trick into coming in here. So while we're waiting, I can show you a little bit more about what we do. So we are putting these tiny, well, in some cases tiny, but small, lightweight aluminum bands that have a 9-digit ID number. Try and get it to focus. So these are one of our smallest bands that we use for our smaller raptors. And they go up in size all the way up to our biggest band, which would fit a bald or a golden eagle. And you can see that's bigger than my thumb. So these birds would have huge legs. So these little 9-digit ID bracelets can help us kind of give a bird a name tag so that if we ever catch them again, we'll know who it is. And if someone else ever catches it again, they'll also be able to tell where this bird was originally banded, maybe where it was born, where it's going on its journey north and south during migration through the years. And so we put them on with these specialized banding pliers. Let me see if I can get so that can open those bands up, and then these holes that allow us to close the band so that nothing ever touches the bird's leg. It's like a perfect fit. And the way that we figure out what size band a bird takes is by using this leg gauge. So those really small bands that I showed you at first were a size 2, and the really big one that was bigger than my thumb was a size 9. So birds' legs can range up to all of these different sizes. These are the ones that we use for songbirds. So we can do a lot of cool things with a lot of cool birds. Let's see. The reason that we're banding these birds is so that we can learn even more about them than we could by just watching them. So another project that we have at Lucky Peak
Oh, we've cut out for a minute, Leah. There we go. We're back.
All right. Okay, so those 2 little dots up there by that tower, you might be able to see, they're people doing hawk watch, and so they're up there watching migrating raptors, and we're down here catching them, and so that's really nice complementary information. So they can tell us how many birds are flying past, and we can tell them what the body condition of the birds are like. So are they eating really well or not? When a bird is in your hand, you can age it much more easily than you could in flight oftentimes and get a lot more specific. And so we can tell a little bit more about specific things like body condition, age, sex, and we look at parasites too to see if the birds have any parasites. So we can learn a lot more than you could just by doing hawk watch alone. And well,
yeah. Well, while we're waiting, Leah, one thing I'd love to cover is what kind of birds you guys catch there. So what kind of birds are you actually waiting for that arrive and take your bait, so to speak?
Yeah. So our most commonly caught species of raptor that we catch is a sharp-shinned hawk. And so those are small little raptors called accipiters. And so they have long and skinny tails that help them to navigate through the forest. So out in all those trees that you can see in front of us, there might be some accipiters like sharp-shinned hawks or Cooper's hawks or northern goshawks hunting for songbirds in all of those trees. And then in these more dry, grassy, sagey valleys that you can kind of see, were made hawks or northern harriers to be hunting for things like mice or other small rodents in those wide open spaces. And
Awesome.
yeah, I think maybe I can answer some questions. I see that the chat has a couple things going on.
Yeah, so I'll share all the questions. We've had some teachers coming in. We're just making sure all the links are good with the chat. But what I'll do is for our teachers that are live, I can come to you guys for questions while we're waiting too. Hopefully we get a bird today. You never know what's going to happen when we do live. But Miss Yafine wanted to know, do you let the birds go after you catch them? Oh, are you good? Can you hear me?
You just kind of froze on me. You sounded like a robot, so I'm not sure what you just said.
No worries. I'll repeat it. So Miss Yafine's class, they wanted to know, do you let the birds go after you catch them?
Yes. So when we catch them, and maybe I'll show you guys a little peek of our trapping setup. When the birds come right now is in a triangle of what we call mist nets, really big nets with pockets like hammocks. And then to the right of it, or sorry, to the left of it, there are some different types of traps. So anyways, once they get caught in the net, we run out there really fast and bring them in here to process them. And then we usually only have them for, 10 minutes or so. And then we let them go, continue on their migration journey, and maybe find a better meal. And so the birds that we're using are pigeons. And I noticed that bird that you have as sort of like the cover photo or the background to our video screening thing is eating a rock pigeon, actually. So we're using pigeons like you might find in the city, and Eurasian collared doves and house sparrows. And we can use all of those because they're invasive species, and so they're not native and they're not protected by any laws. And like I said, they have these little leather bulletproof vests on, so we want to keep them safe anyways. Forget where my train of thought was going on that. So we have several different sizes of lures for different sizes of birds that we might catch, and also birds that have different hunting styles.
Okay. Super cool, Leah. I want to take a question from Facebook, and then what I'm going to do is come one by one through our live classes. Everyone else's microphones are working, so I will come to you directly. But this is from Miss Leah's class in Auburn, New York. Why it takes so much energy for birds to fly? Is there a specific reason you can share with us?
All right, I'm going to need you to repeat that again. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, Leah. So the question is, it's on the bottom of your screen too. You might be able to see it from Auburn in New York. A class wondering why it takes so much energy for birds to fly.
Oh, okay. Well, imagine if you were traveling all the way from, let's say, Canada to where some of our classes are joining us from, all the way to Florida. So that's a really far distance, and that's sort of an example of a distance that a bird is really likely to go on its migration. So if you had a choice between running that entire way, or maybe using a skateboard or a bike that you could glide for some of that time, I think you would probably choose the easier way, which would be to glide more often. So it takes a lot more energy for you to be constantly moving and running, as opposed to taking those downhills really nice and gliding. So it's sort of the same for the birds. They would either flap constantly on their journey, or use these mountains and that air movement to help them sort of glide instead.
Yeah.
And so that's just a raven flying around.
Okay.
So ravens and other corvids, which are their relatives, are really smart. So they're too smart to get caught here, but they are really curious. And so they kind of like to check out what's going on and tease us a little bit.
They sure are. It's so neat seeing the raven fly in front of the screen. Hopefully he goes away and we can get some of the birds you are looking for. All right, let's go to Miss Penfolds' class. So Miss Penfolds' group is joining us in Orangeville, Ontario. If you guys have a question for Leah, come on in.
Sorry, you're frozen. All I can hear when you talk is a robot voice.
That's okay. Sorry about that. We'll get it again. So Miss Penfolds' class is just asking us a question, Leah. So hopefully you can hear me now, and hopefully you can hear this question coming in.
What is the biggest raptor you've caught?
The biggest raptor you've ever caught, Leah? So Leah, our question for you, if you can hear us, and this is sort of the fun of trying to broadcast live from a mountain in Idaho, is Leah, if you can answer what the biggest raptor you've ever caught is, and I can write this in the chat bar too. What is the biggest raptor?
I'm gonna give it a second. I don't know if you can hear me.
There you go. Yes, I can hear you. On the bottom of your screen. Bottom of the screen. What is the biggest raptor you've ever caught? Hopefully that comes through.
All right, that worked. So the biggest raptor that we've ever caught is a golden eagle, and I'm being really quiet because there's a bird.
Oh, and she's gone. See, we just almost got a bird, and then Leah disappeared. And again, this is half the fun of broadcasting on a mountain in Idaho. So I'm going to try and go get Leah back. I'll be right back in a second, guys. I'm just going to email her really quick, see if we can get her back on the thing. And maybe when she's back, we'll get an answer to that question. She was mentioning a golden eagle, one of the most beautiful birds in the world. And hopefully we'll have a live raptor on screen for you guys. Right, come back in. Connection failed. All right. So while we're waiting, what I'm going to do is bring up a few things for you guys, resources that you can use to learn more while we're waiting for Leah to pop back in. So on your screen in a second, when I can get it up on a banner for you guys, is the Lucky Peak Research Station website. So bottom of your screen right now, check this out. This is where you can learn more about Lucky Peak, the research that's going on there, all the cool stuff they're doing to ban and catch birds and to do that sort of research. So check that out. And with that, Leah's back. So we're going to check in with her. Leah, welcome back.
Hello again. So I did hear your last question about the largest bird that we've ever caught.
Yeah.
So the largest bird that we've ever caught actually fit that really big band the size of my thumb. Oops, you can't see it. But so we have caught a couple golden eagles. And so they are really big birds, mostly found in the west, but they can be found in the east. And so most people know how big approximately a bald eagle is, but I bet you didn't know that their legs were that big. So that's the biggest bird that we've ever caught here at this station. We've caught them more often in past years. Right now we have a resident pair that has babies every year or so. So they're really territorial, and so they are chasing other birds away from their territory. And so one way that the hawk watchers can tell that a bird is migrating is if the resident golden eagle pair chases them away, because they don't want them to eat any of their food or use any of their resources.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. All right, I'm going to go to our group in Indiana, Miss Fisher's class first, and then we'll go to Dunwich Dutton Public School in a minute. So our class, Miss Fisher's group, come on in, ask the question.
How do they get to measure the birds without, like, the birds struggling?
Yeah.
Without the birds flying away?
Yeah, struggling or flying away.
Yeah, that's a good question. Hey, Evan, can you hand me a can? All right, so maybe you can explain it since you're up there.
Sure.
So how do we measure the birds and everything without them flying away?
All right, so when we first capture a bird, we control its legs so it doesn't grab us, because that can be very painful with their powerful talons. And so we control the legs, and then as soon as we bring it into the blind here, we put it in this can, and that keeps it thinks it's dark, so it just quiets down, is calm. We can weigh it. For a larger bird, might leave it in the can as we band it, and we can take it out carefully in its wings, and then take different measurements, such as the wing measurement and the tail and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so when we measure wing and tail, for the wing, we've got these really specialized rulers, and they have this little corner on them that the wrist joint of the bird fits into. So I can show you on Evan's shirt, like it would go like that if we were measuring that bird's wing. But for measuring the tail, we just use this ruler that you would use in math class to measure the perimeter of a square or something like that. So we've got some really specialized equipment, and we have some really kind of just normal equipment that we use for different purposes, like these two soup cans that we made sure that they were safe and not sharp and taped together to put a bird in. So scientists are always trying to think outside the box and be creative with the ways that we can study things.
Cool. I would encourage our classes, if we don't get a chance to have a live Raptor on screen today, check out some of the past presentations with Lucky Peep, because you get to see that can in action. And also, what better justification to keep up with math than the potential to, measure the talon of a giant bird of prey? Super cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to go to Kate and Skylar, just down the road from you guys in Boise, Idaho. So Kate and Skylar, if you guys have a question for us, come on up and ask away.
What's our question? We were wondering, and they kind of talked about this before, but do you ever get injured from the birds because they have sharp talons and beaks? So that was a question we had.
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is yes. Sometimes we do. Not very often, because it takes us a lot of training and a lot of time to be able to learn how to safely band these birds. But like Evan was saying before, we are putting the birds in the can, and we're holding them so that their feet are contained and sort of away from us. So for a lot of raptors, their feet are the most dangerous part of them. So we want to stay away from them. And so we use very careful grips so that we can stay safe. And those grips also help us keep the bird safe. The can and the grips help keep the bird more calm, so that as it doesn't get really scared and flap around or try and attack us and then end up hurting itself.
Fantastic. I always love when we get that question about people who work with live animals. Again, a lot of training goes into this, a lot of building up that expertise, and that goes a long way to helping prevent injuries. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but a lot of work is made sure to, make sure that the animals and people aren't injured in any of these processes. So great question, guys. All right, Mr. Cianfrini's class joining us in Toronto. If you guys have a question, come on up and go for it.
Has a bird ever flown into the box, like, without anything else?
Ooh, I don't think so. That would be a very curious bird. So I don't think that's happened, but I do know. So I'll show you some of our lure birds here. Oh, let me change the camera. Sorry. So sometimes these little house sparrows, if you can see them flapping around in there, sometimes they escape. And so I've seen them fly back into our little box. because they want to get back to where the food is. But I've never seen that happen with a raptor.
That is an awesome question and one I've never had in any of our Lucky Feet sessions. I just picture the shark walking straight at you guys. Maybe today. We'll see how it goes. Awesome question.
Oh, man.
For those on YouTube and Facebook, please don't be shy. Share questions there too. We'll take as many as we can. I'm going to go back to an earlier question from Miss Yaffin's class, also in Toronto. Have you ever recaught the same bird, Leah?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have this year, within our first week of trapping, I think, we caught a sharp-shinned hawk that had been caught last year at our sister station down the ridge at Boise Peak. And so we do catch them, and so we can learn several things from that. Number one, we can learn how old the bird is, maybe depending on what age we banded it, and we can learn that the bird is still alive, and so that's really good news for us. We can learn whether their body condition has changed at all. So maybe one year were they really healthy, and then the next year, if maybe they're not as healthy, maybe we can think, I wonder if something is going wrong with the population as a whole, or maybe it's just this bird that hasn't found food very often. What's even more exciting is if we catch a bird that another person has banded before, or if a person had caught one of the birds that we banded far away from us. So again, this year we caught a red-tailed hawk from the Bay Area in California, and we caught it here in Boise, Idaho. So now it's really exciting, but it's kind of given us even more questions. What's this bird doing here? How did it get from San Francisco to Boise? But that's really exciting stuff that scientists love to figure out and try and answer.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love when we get to highlight that question, and whether it's migrations of birds or butterflies or whatever around the world. That's a really essential question, and one I'm excited we got a chance to cover. All right, I'm going to go back to Miss Penfolds' class. We are getting some more questions on YouTube as well, so thanks for everyone there. Miss Penfolds group, come on back up and go for it.
What's the rarest bird you've caught?
Ooh, the rarest bird.
All right, let's see what we can see in our blind. So sometimes the trappers will write down really cool birds that they've caught. This one is pretty funny. It's an adult male mountain biker. So one time a mountain biker didn't see our nets and went really fast down the hill and got caught in our nets. But the rarest bird that we've caught is a tie. So in 2005, we caught a long-tailed Jaeger. Evan, you'll have to tell us a little bit more about where the long-tailed Jaeger normally is.
Yeah, so the long-tailed Jaeger is a seabird. They're usually far out at sea. They breed up in the Arctic tundra, and they're kind of pirates. They chase other birds around and steal stuff from them, but they will also eat smaller birds. They're kind of vicious. They're not a hawk per se. They're their own different type of bird, similar to a skua, but they're not supposed to be here. I think it was pushed inland by a storm and happened to be flying by and wanted to snack on a sparrow or something.
Yeah. And then our other most rare bird that we've caught here was a gyrfalcon. So in 2008, we caught a gyrfalcon. So you guys have heard of peregrine falcons. And so this is their, again, Arctic cousin. Gyrfalcons, maybe some of our people in Canada, but I don't know if they're in Eastern Canada. Gyrfalcons do winter in some of the western provinces and in North Dakota here in the US. But they're another bird that's breeding in the Arctic, in Alaska, and usually don't come here to Boise, Idaho in the high desert. So when we get birds like that, especially when we get to catch them in our station, that's really cool and exciting.
Awesome. And by the way, thanks to Evan for these cameos where he comes in and talks about pirate birds. Way to go. You guys are awesome. All right, let's go to Dunwich Dutton Public School, Miss Little's class, because I forgot you guys in the first round. So let's do 2 questions from you guys back to back. I'll come to you for one. We'll answer it, and we'll come right back, okay?
No.
So, come on up.
On average, how many birds do you catch a day?
Ooh, good question.
All right, I'll let Nick, your fellow Canadian, answer
Ooh.
that question.
Ontario.
Yeah.
So right now we're kind of on this back half of peak migration, and so right now we're averaging about 15 birds a day. In the beginning, it's about 5 to 10, and at the end, it kind of tapers off again. So right now is the best time, and a good day, 15 or so. And our best day so far this season has been 32, which is a lot of raptors. So we're busy station out here.
Fantastic, guys. Thanks for that. All right, let's go back to Dunwich Dutton. Now, Miss Little students, if you guys have another question, come on back.
How long do they have them for?
How long do you have them for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it depends, I guess, on how long it takes for us to catch a bird. Sometimes they'll come in really fast and are really serious about grabbing something to eat. So we'll catch them very quickly and then ban them for about 10 minutes or less. Sometimes they're a little harder to trick into thinking that our birds that we're have control of are good, easy prey. And so they might come in, take a pass at one of or more of our birds, and then fly away and then come back again. So we're really only handling them for about 10 minutes or less, but sometimes we are engaging with those birds for a little bit longer.
Great question, guys. And again, in some of our past sessions with Lucky Pete, you see the entire process of catching the bird, bringing it in, doing all the measurements, and letting it go. So I'll pass along those links when we're done so you guys can check that out and see some of the amazing creatures that they catch. All right, I'm going to go to Miss Fisher's group, and then I'll come to Kate and Skylar. We're going to do 4 more questions total here, guys. You guys are whipping through it. It's awesome. So Miss Fisher's class, come on up. Go for it.
Why are the birds called raptors?
Yeah.
I don't know if I know the answer to that question. Do you guys know why birds of prey are also called raptors?
I think just because of their lifestyle, like a raptor is something that preys on other birds, and they have a hooked bill, sharp talons, great keen eyesight. That's kind of like the 3 characteristics that help define them as a raptor. But yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, so some really old scientists probably came up with that word, and then, or maybe it came from Latin, and we're just still using it today. And like Nick said, just to make sure you guys heard, what makes a raptor a raptor? And so we've got things like our hawks, and owls are also raptors too. So they've got really sharp hooked bills. They've got really good eyesight. And they're birds that are hunting other animals for their prey so that they can eat.
Yeah. So yes, from the Latin, by the way, seized or plundering. So that's where the term comes from, and it applies, as many of our students will know, to dinosaurs as well. So we've got velociraptors, we've got modern day raptors, all sorts of amazing species, basically highlighting the fact that they hunt and are really efficient predators. So great question, guys. All right, Kate and Skylar, back to you guys. If you have another question for us, go for it.
How,
Go ahead.
how did the red hawk? I wonder if the red hawk.
We were wondering if the red-tailed hawk from California may have come to you because of the fires in California. Would something affect their migration patterns?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one that we discussed within our crew when we heard about that capture. So that's definitely one hypothesis that we have. Maybe on just a chipmunk, not a bird, false alarm. Maybe on its migration journey, maybe it was it didn't want to go through all that smoke on the West Coast, and Idaho hasn't been as bad. So maybe it came over here. Another hypothesis is maybe it's just a young bird that's looking to find its own territory. And because it's gotten kicked out of its parents' territory, they won't let it hunt there anymore. So maybe it's just trying to find a home, and it decided on Boise. So we don't know. And so we've had a lot of questions from people about how the smoke has been affecting our capture rates.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I have a great answer for you, but it seems like maybe not, or maybe it has. So for Hawk Watch, the low visibility could have been affecting their count numbers just because they couldn't see as well. But for capture rates of hawks, owls, and songbirds, we're not really seeing much of a difference between really smoky days and not that smoky days. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of the season kind of what everything looks like when everything's said and done, and also to see how other stations in the West, how their seasons have gone, and if they've been affected more or less or the same as us.
Okay. Fantastic, guys. One of the things that we cover in a lot of our broadcasts is how climate change and uncertainties are influencing a lot of animal migration patterns, changing their habitats, changing their habits. So I'm really glad we get questions that can cover that. Thanks, guys. All right, let's wrap up with one last question, Mr. Chancellor. Come on in, guys, and take it away.
Have you ever caught an endangered species?
Yeah. Any endangered species? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Nick has helped me answer this question. The American kestrel isn't an endangered species, but it is a species that in its range is declining, and we kind of don't really know why. So kestrels are really common birds. They're small falcons that are mostly orange. Some of them have blue heads if they're a male, so you may have seen them around your house. But due to a lot of potential things like climate change, like habitat loss, like pesticides that might be hurting their prey items, they're just declining all throughout their range. And so we're still catching them and kind of using our data to help their populations as much as we can.
Yeah, fantastic question, guys. One thing I wanted to recommend as a follow-up for everyone, Adam Smith's presentation. So he's an Environment of Canada scientist. He highlighted one of the main looks at all the birds across all of North America and how many have been lost over the last 30 years. So check out his presentation. It's really beautiful on our YouTube channel, and a nice follow-up to learn about birds in general, how their populations are declining, and ways that you guys can help at home. So Leah, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see a raptor today, but you never know what's going to happen live in the field. But I really, really appreciate you highlighting all the cool stuff that you guys are up to and some really great stories of bird capturing and your research today.
Yeah, for sure. And we love to join you guys too. Sorry we couldn't catch you anything, but yeah, like Jesse said, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Is there one last thing you'd like to share with classes? Maybe they can learn more about the work that you guys are doing?
Ooh, well, if anyone wants to follow IBO on social media, you could look us up, Intermountain Bird Observatory on Facebook and on Instagram. We share a lot of the cool birds that we catch. And we also have started doing some sort of similar live demonstrations, just like we're doing now, because we miss having visitors, because we can't, because of COVID. So everyone should stay safe so that everybody's life can get back to normal. And yeah, I would say check out that video that Jesse mentioned. That sounds really interesting, and anything that you can do for birds or any other wildlife will definitely help a lot.
Yeah.
And we'd love to see the effects of all your efforts as we study the birds and other animals.
Amazing, guys. So for any one of our students, check out IBO again on social media. I put that on the bottom once again. You can share what you guys find or are keen to do at SOYP on Twitter. We'd love to see your thoughts and see more. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm going to bring all our students in. If you guys want to join me to say a big thank you and goodbye to Leah, you are all in the broadcast. Everyone, thank you so much.